All right, we're back. Another episode of Lowdown. It's been a while, but we got March Madness starting today. So, of course, we want to talk about it. We're all big UCLA basketball guys and big college basketball guys. Dan wasn't able to join us, but we're going to break it down. It's going to be an exciting weekend, especially, I caught the March Madness bug for sure. Missed out on it last year. So excited. It's one of the most exciting times of the year for sure. All the storylines, even if you're not the biggest college basketball fan, it can get all sports fans captivated. And, we're going to start off with talking about some UCLA basketball. The Bruins really struggled down the stretch, blowing leads against some of the top teams in the Pac-12, and then getting upset by Oregon State in the conference tournament. Congratulations to Oregon State, though, on stealing a bid. That was very impressive. However, that may have knocked UCLA down into a play-in game where they will face Michigan State tonight, 11 seed play-in game, and the winner will face BYU. So the Bruins, the big issues has been they can't play consistent basketball down the stretch, even though we looked like a very solid team for the first 3 quarters of the game or so. Michigan State is going to be a tough, well-coached team. Of course, Tom Izzo's teams are always a tough test in March. They always seem like more of a threat when they're a lower seed. I feel like their deepest runs often come when they're around, the 7 to 10 range. Maybe not when they've been upset, of course, in the past when they were a 2 seed a few years ago. But anyway, I think Michigan State will be a tough team to face. But however, I think that if we can limit Aaron Henry, and as well if we can utilize the fact that they don't have a lot of huge big guys, and use Cody, as well as if Johnny Juzang is fully healthy and shooting well, I think we have a really solid shot here. However, the bad form down the stretch is definitely a problem for the Bruins.
Yeah, first of all, I'm super excited for March Madness. It's been 700 plus days now. And it's going to be a great game. It's going to go down to the wire, but it'll really come down to if UCLA can maintain a lead. And, Mick Cronin has had problems in the past with Cincinnati as well of playing well in March. He's never made it to the Sweet 16. But what we're kind of hoping for is that, it's not like UCLA has played bad. They played the 4 best teams in the Pac-12, excluding us, right? So 4 losses is not good, but it was 4 good teams. And we were winning in all of them by at least 8 or 9 points. So it's going to come down to if we can get a lead and maintain it. That's really going to be the big thing.
Yeah, as you guys kind of hit on, UCLA, in the last 4 games, they played really, really well for about 35 minutes. Against USC, they kind of collapsed with about 5 minutes to go. Oregon was a little earlier. It was like last 7, same with Colorado. A lot of dumb fouls and turnovers in the last few minutes of the most recent 4 games. But I expect this to actually be an advantage towards UCLA tonight. Michigan State has really been a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team because they've beaten Illinois, they've beaten Michigan, they've beaten Ohio State this year, and they started off 6-0, and they have faltered to a 15-12 record. So they've really hit some cold stretches. I think there's a lot of keys, and I think the key is how Rocket Watts is going to play tonight. He's their point guard. He's trying to follow the footsteps of Cassius Winston, the Michigan State legend, and he is not fit up to the bill this year. He's shooting 34% from the field, 29% from 3. And if UCLA can get him to force his own turnovers, there's a good chance that UCLA matches up really, really well. Ben, you pointed out that they don't have a lot of bigs. Their starting center they run out is usually Malik Hall. He's 6'7", so I'm hoping Cody Riley gets going early. And also, as you brought up, is Johnny Juzang, his health. He was coming off an ankle injury in that Oregon State game, and you saw him sit out for a good stretch of 20 minutes. He didn't get checked into the game until overtime, and I think that was more because of his defensive issues rather than his ankle. So hopefully he's ready to go. But if anybody is going to be able to score 20-plus on the court tonight, it's Juzang.
Definitely. I think the narrative could be should be so much different for this UCLA team. Of course, we're coming in with 4 straight losses, but, those were all blown leads to some extent. especially, Oregon, USC, and Oregon State, the most recent three. So even if we had won, one or two of those games, we'd be feeling a little bit better. However, at the same time, the fact that we haven't been playing very well means that maybe we're due for something. So I think that's a real interesting thing if we can bounce back. And Mick has shown come tournament time, his teams are usually tough to beat. And he consistently has made the round of 32 at Cincinnati. However, not able to make deeper runs than that. However, so I think that one question for me that's interesting is how many guys do we need to have games tonight to win? I think we need to get at least. I think it would be important to get 15 plus from Juzang. I think it's important to have him shooting well. However, I think that if we're over reliant on him, like we were back in the Stanford game when we blew that game earlier in the season, that if we get over reliant on his shooting, then we don't play as well because we aren't getting other players incorporated like Jaime. So I think Jaime is a key player for me. I think if you have like three guys total have like a really nice night, whether that's Jaime, Juzang, and Tiger, or maybe Singleton shows up with 3 threes or something like that. I think we need at least three guys to step up and play above their usual level to win tonight. I think that if we're over reliant on just Tiger and Juzang or just Juzang and Jaime, I think that doesn't bode well. I think we need at least three guys, and if we can get four, maybe get Cody with some good work on the block, I think that'll be key.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's going to be a lot of hype surrounding Michigan State because they beat Michigan. And to be fair, like that is a great win. They beat Illinois. It's another great win. But they were kind of backs to the wall in terms of they had to win games to make the tournament. And one thing that I've been looking at is they're actually not great offensively, which is good for UCLA because they struggle against offensive teams. At least from what I've seen this season, but they're 98th, I think, in KenPom offensive efficiency. And, they have only one player who averages more than 10 points, as opposed to UCLA, who has 5, not including Chris Smith. So we really are able to, spread the ball around, as opposed to Michigan State, whose main guy is Henry. And this season, when Juzang hasn't played well, other players have stepped up. Jaime has stepped up. Tiger stepped up. Jules has played well in certain games. So that's really what it's going to come down to. If, Juzang is coming back, he's a little rusty. He hasn't played a full game in a while. We have other players to step up. But if Henry doesn't play well, they're going to struggle to score.
Who guards Henry? Is it Jaime or is it Jules?
Jules. I think Jules is the best defender, so he should be guarding him.
Another interesting point on that will be the use of Jalen Clark tonight, who when he comes in off the bench,
definitely could be someone guarding him.
He could definitely be someone that gets us going on the defensive end because he brings a lot of energy, and I honestly think he's the best offensive rebounder on the team. And I don't think it's close.
Sometimes it's Jules too in there. He's very gritty. Definitely.
Jules is going to be a very pivotal player. But one thing that I definitely want to watch is how Michigan State defends the high screen, because they're probably going to go under it with Tiger Campbell, which means he's going to have a couple open 3 looks today. And I'm hoping he hits 1 or 2. So at least to keep Michigan State honest on the high screen and roll, so that will make it easier for him to penetrate the lane. So I think that's going to be a big part of it, how Michigan State plays a pick and roll defense tonight.
I think so too, because they're going to have to play it multiple ways because you can see, going under on Tiger may work, but if we get Jules involved in the pick and roll game, he's been good, from that top of the key 3-pointer recently. So you don't want to leave him open, whereas you're more comfortable letting Tiger have that shot. And I also think Jules is another key that I didn't touch on earlier, because I think that if he is able to get on the drive on his left hand, he's really an important player. And when we were on our hot streak with the 8 wins to start the Pac-12 season, that he was a key piece in that, and him finding that left-handed layup and getting to the rim and using his strength as a real strong guard is been key for us. So I think that him having a good game, I think you need at least like 3 of our 5 starters to really have solid performances. Otherwise, if we're over reliant on 1 or 2 of them, it's not going to go well. However, Michigan State is very reliant on Aaron Henry. So I think on the defensive end, it'll be really, really important to contain him.
And the big thing is Aaron Henry only shoots 28% from 3. So it's actually possible to go under screens for him as well, because he's just 4 percentage points better than Tiger. And what that means is, UCLA, who's not a great 3-point defending team, will have, the opportunity to kind of play a little bit more condensed and try and, account for the fact that Cody is getting oversized by the bigs of Michigan State.
However, they don't have a lot of bigs, and I think the
No,
one name that we haven't mentioned is Mac Etienne, and he's not huge, but he's very long. So I think that'll be an interesting one. He's been getting a few more looks the last few games on that right-handed hook shot, and I'd be interested to see if we can get Mac involved. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Colo. If I think Etienne could get a few buckets, and that could be a big factor as well.
I agree, especially when Cody Riley goes to the bench. Hopefully he doesn't get into foul trouble. But Tiger doesn't seem to have chemistry with Mac Etienne yet, because I think Mac Etienne probably has the best leaps on this team.
However, I've seen Tiger
him
zip a lot of passes out of bounds past Mac. I feel like
he doesn't have the hands yet, but Mac, I've seen him get some impressive offensive rebounds. I think his touch is actually really nice under the basket. As you were saying, he's got a couple nice post hooks, and he's a little undersized. I think 6'9" is a stretch for him. He's probably like 6'8.5", but he played really well. He held his own against Evan Mobley, who's a lot bigger than him, and he will be probably the tallest player on the court whenever he's on the court, unless I think they have a 6'11" bench player, but they use him sparingly, like 9 minutes a game or something. So I like Mac Etienne tonight. Hopefully he can get some good looks. But as you guys were pointing out, this is a favorable matchup for us because they do not shoot well at all.
Mm-hmm. We're so much
their
better
wins
from
have
three.
come off good defense, and we've matched up against some good defensive teams, and we kind of have that slow paced offense, and then we kind of figure it out at the end. A couple grinded out wins, but let's keep in mind UCLA shoots the ball really well from three. David Singleton's at 46%. Jules Bernard, as you said, he hits from the top of the key. He's shooting 41%. Jaime Hawkins is at 38%. And I know Juice Ding's at about 35%. So we have some shooters on this team.
And we're 37% as a team, whereas Michigan State's only 32%. So that's a big difference right there.
Yeah, 32%.
Michigan State is 32%.
The entire team is not good. And they're open threes. I watched them play against Rutgers twice this year. And both games, they won one by 30 and lost the other by 30. But both times there's wide open threes that they just miss, which is big because usually that's kind of a deflator if you just have someone wide open hitting threes, but they're not that type of team.
Definitely not. And I mean, I think if we can, control the glass to an extent, obviously without Jalen, it's been tough. But if we stay out of foul trouble, make sure we don't get. It's good to make sure Kenyon Nwuba isn't getting huge minutes, because if he is, then that means there's foul trouble. So if we can keep Cody and Mac out of foul trouble and get strong performances from at least 3 or 4 of our main guys, I think that'll be huge. I also really want to see us feed David Singleton if he's hot, because too many times this year I've seen him hit 2 threes and have Mick pull him out of the game. And I think that we just need to let him shoot more. The guy's shot almost 50% from 3 over the course of the season. Just let him shoot if he's having a good game. He's not been great every single game, but there's been some games where he shot well, but he's only taken 4 shots, and it's annoying. And he's also been decent off a quick pick and roll and pull up from the elbow. He can hit that shot too. So even though he doesn't have a really deep, versatile game, he can shoot from multiple spots, and he's a decent ball handler. So I want to see him a little bit more alongside Tiger at the same time if he's having a good game, if he's feeling himself.
Couple points on Singleton. You can first off, you can tell he's really worked on that mid-range game, that come off the pick. They overcommit, and David Singleton's got room for that pull-up too. You can tell he's been really working on that, because that has never been part of his game. What is he, a junior? So his first 2.5 years, that was non-existent. And as you pointed out, the last couple of games, he's done that quite well. It looks ugly, but it works.
Yeah, it's a slow shooting motion, but if he creates the space, it works.
But David Singleton, remember when UCLA got on that stretch last year of winning 9 out of 11, that really got the program excited. One of those big reasons was because Mick finally made the switch of putting David Singleton in the starting lineup and taking out Prince Ali, everybody's favorite UCLA player. But Davis Singleton is key because not only does he hit the three, he shot 52% from three in conference, by the way. And as your point, I agree. I think he needs at least 6 field goal attempts tonight, if not more. I'm
Yeah,
all for Davis Singleton shooting.
And it
But
stretches the
another
floor. It
key
makes
is
them more honest on the edge, and that'll open
he
up space
doesn't turn the
to feed
ball
Cody.
over. He does not turn the ball over. That's huge.
Exactly.
He's not going to drive the lane and penetrate that well. He'll move or he'll dribble around the key a little bit, maybe get to the free throw line at best, but he doesn't turn the ball over. He takes smart shots and he at least tries on defense. He's a little undersized too, but he at least tries. I can't say that about everybody.
That's what I was going to say, Colo, is, one of the reasons I think he doesn't play that much is that mixed philosophy, although it doesn't always work, is this really intense defensive attitude. And he is undersized and he's not always the best defender, along with Kyman. That's why I think they've both had limited minutes this season.
Kyman's also only shooting 32% from three.
I mean, that's true, but his, he was.
Ben, what was he at?
30. I think he's 32 or 33. Let me check.
He's at 32 from three and 40% from the field, which isn't great.
32.6. Yeah, no, he hasn't gotten hot in a while, and I see why. And
but I'll say in Kyman's defense, he's had no chance. He's had no chance to get hot.
He hasn't been given a shot.
Yeah,
no, he hasn't. I don't blame that. I don't blame that much on Kyman. I think it's a tough task, but Mick has had a difficult time, I think, managing lineups this year and rotations.
Yeah,
but that's to an extent. You lose Chris Smith, you lose Jalen Hill. I mean, that's a big problem. There's two of your three best defensive players, your leading scorer, and your best rim protector
20 points
by a
worth
mile.
of scoring this year. That's crazy. 20 points per game worth of scoring when they were playing, which is a lot.
20, and then you're talking about an extra 14 rebounds a game about.
Yeah. And also, just to finish my point,
keep going. I'm sorry, I jumped in.
No worries. The idea of Singleton not being able to defend is a little bit less of an issue when you're playing a team that shoots 33% from three or 38%, whatever it was. That's like one of the things, there's been a couple of times this year where there's been miscommunications defensively, and whether it's Juzang or David Singleton just kind of end up with somebody wide open from three. And that's been a big problem because, you play a long possession, you play 20 seconds of good defense, but, one drive and kick leads to an open three. That probably won't be as significant today. So hopefully it'll mean David can get more minutes.
Unfortunately, just a point on a good point of uncontested threes. Do you know who was really bad on that at the Oregon State game? If you go back and watch those highlights, Jalen Clark. Jalen Clark he gets pulled because he misses defensive assignments. His energy and intensity is always up and great, but he has been lackluster on the defensive IQ, at least, which to his defense, he's a freshman. So, I mean, he's going to make those mistakes, and he's in limited action. It's not like Jaime when he was a freshman. He was playing 30 minutes a game. He was getting a lot of exposure. Jalen Clark I need to look it up, but he's probably averaging around 12 minutes a game, 10 to 12.
Over the course of the season, he's been only 9 minutes a game, but it's definitely ticked up a lot recently.
Yeah, that's definitely some recency bias in that. But
I think
if Jalen Clark's in, he's got to be right. But to Jake's point, Michigan State doesn't shoot the ball well. That bodes well for lineups including Juzang, Kyman, and Singleton.
I think so too, and I think that this, like, early in the season, it was the big story was we're doing pretty well, but our defense wasn't that good. But we were scoring a lot. We were scoring like averaging around 80 a game at the very start of the season almost. And it was like UCLA was really good in offensive efficiency, but not defensive, which is like antithetical to Mick Cronin's philosophy. However, tonight, if we can find that offensive consistency and hit shots from outside, I think this is a Michigan State team where we can outrun them and outscore them. We can use that approach. I mean, of course, the defense should be solid, but I think that a high-scoring game typically is going to benefit us. We just need to play a complete 40-minute game because I think that, the issue is we can't close out a lead in the final 10 minutes. So, like, what changes need to be made down the stretch? For me, I just want to see us to continue at the same tempo, to not get hesitant. I notice sometimes at the end of games, Tiger maybe we have like a 3-on-3, or something, or a 4-on-3, and he'll pull it out and try to waste a little more time. Maybe this is 5 minutes left in the game. I want to see us push and just continue, stay in the flow, stay with that momentum. If we have it, don't give it up, because we stagnated. Whether it was against Oregon with 10 minutes left or against USC with only 2 or 3 minutes left, we stagnated at the end of games. So we need to make sure we just keep our confidence, keep our flow, and sometimes we forget the basics. Can't even inbound the ball at the very end of games. So we just need to not get fazed by the moment, which is going to be tough considering we don't have anyone who's played in March Madness. Chris Smith's the only player who's been there, and he's of course injured. So it's going to be important to stay focused, not get phased by the moment.
At the same time?
What?
Does Michigan State have exposure players with experience in March? I don't know if they do.
Sure.
Because last year there was a lot of turnover. So there probably is some players that at least 2 years down the road, there's no starters on this Michigan State team from 2 years ago on their March Madness team. So maybe they got a couple minutes. But I think that's a good thing for UCLA because neither team is that well experienced. But I think that's fair to say that a lot of teams in this tournament do not have an adequate NCAA tournament experience.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if UCLA can hit 75 points, we win this game. If it stays below that, I don't know if we win.
Which is weird because usually for years we've been wanting the other way around.
Exactly.
We've lacked a leader at times this year in games that we've thrown away, and that's what happens when Chris Smith doesn't play. I don't think he was having the best of seasons before he got hurt. But one thing that he always brings is, he's played, he's experienced, and, maybe with 5 minutes left in a game, you can give the ball to Chris Smith. That's not an option anymore. So one thing I'm looking for today is somebody like Juzang or Jaime or even Jules Bernard to really get some leadership. And, if there's 10 seconds left on the clock, say, give me the ball, I'm going to go score. That's the type of thing. I'm going to get to the line, because if we have a player who we can rely on in tough situations, that's what we haven't had. And as you say, Tiger's been pulling the ball out and it's looked kind of static on the offensive end in the last 10 minutes of games. That can change if somebody decides to step up, and that's what we're going to need today.
I think Jaime is the leader of this team. I think he's the heart and soul. I don't know if the ball should be in his hands. It's a tough question because this team is so balanced scoring-wise that you might say, okay, if Juzang's hot, we want it in his hands, and he'll gladly take it. We know that. Earlier in the season, when we were in early January, Cody Riley was the one that was closing out games, feeding him down low, and he was doing well in that closer role. That's kind of faded the last 6 games or so. So that would be interesting to see if that's our choice. Jules Bernard has kept us in games. Even the last few games that we lost, Jules Bernard did a pretty darn good job of doing his best to keep us in. So there's a lot of options, and there needs to be one that emerges tonight.
Yeah, like I said, I think if we get 3 of those guys to step up, I think that bodes well for us. And obviously, I think a higher scoring game tends to favor us, which, in the past, wasn't our frame of mind. But what are our predictions for this game? For me, I'm going to say, I think that this is wishful thinking, but I think that we will fulfill those keys that I mentioned. I think that we'll score. I think we win this game 76-69.
I think UCLA's due a win, and for that reason, I think they will, but it's not going to be by 7 points. It will come down to the last, 2 or 3 minutes, and we will finally get some good possessions and some, good shot selection out of Juzang late in the game, and we will win 71-68.
I like UCLA in this because I think they match up really well. UCLA's biggest weakness on defense is also Michigan State's biggest weakness on offense, the perimeter shooting. And I think we've got the size to do it. And to your guys' point, we're due. I think we're due. But I think that this game is closer than I've got UCLA 74, Michigan State 72.
Hopefully, it should be a close one unless one team comes out and really underperforms. Either two coaches with tremendous intensity, and they demand a lot from their players. And of course, Izzo's the more high-profile guy, but Mick seeks to emulate what Izzo has done at Michigan State. Should be a good one. The winner will face BYU. I think it's a pretty popular upset pick in brackets is the UCLA/MSU line over BYU. How do you think
That's
the
what I
winner
did.
would do against them?
I think Michigan State matches up with BYU much better than we do. If we were to win tonight, I would advocate that we have to start Jalen Clark because BYU shoots the three ball really well, and we need whatever bit of defense Nick can squeeze out of this team. I think we need all of it for BYU because they are such a good shooting team. We don't match up well, but I would have faith that our talent would be able to carry us past BYU.
You know, the BYU starting guards average 27, 20, almost 28 points combined. And
That's
they,
fine.
yes, but they drop 80 points a game. So it's going to have to be a full 40 minutes of defensive focus. That's something that doesn't always happen. But if we get to the next round, the focus defensively, there can't be these Jalen Clark lapses. There can't be,
Yep.
David Singleton leaving someone open from three because they'll just knock it right down. They shoot 38% from three and 50% from the
Jesus.
field. That's really going to be hard. We're really going to have to play focused. It doesn't really matter who plays BYU. That's going to have to be the case.
I think so. I agree with you guys for sure. What do you think our ceiling is this tournament? I think that it's I mean the way we have been playing, it's not promising, but what would be like best case scenario for you guys? I don't know. For me, I'm thinking that it would be really tough to beat a Texas team in the round of 32, but I guess you never know. I think I couldn't see us getting much further than that, though. Honestly, I think round of 32 is like realistic best case scenario. I think like Dream World is probably like Sweet 16 for me.
I would say that, yeah, our ceiling is probably the Sweet 16, and I would probably even say the round of 32. But this lower half of our side from, the 6, 11, 3, 14, every single team is good. BYU is good. Michigan State, UCLA are both great teams right now. Texas, UConn, and Alabama on the lower half are also just really intense teams. If UConn Alabama is the game in the round of 32, I think that'll be one of the games of the tournament. It's, super power
Really?
offense with UConn and Nate Oates defense with Alabama. It's going to be such a great game. So that's it. We got unlucky with the hard bracket, but we also have injuries. And with everything that's happened this year, I still think it's a pretty overperforming season, especially if we can get a win tonight.
Yeah, I think in terms of UCLA season expectations, a lot of it all got thrown out the window, at least my expectations, when Jalen Hill left. Not quite Chris Smith, because UCLA was still winning a good amount of games. We had won we started at, remember, what were we, 8-0 in conference to start? So we were winning some
8-0, yeah.
games. We were up to the 5 seed line at one point. So losing Jalen Hill was quite a bit. I would call this season a success if we get past Michigan State tonight. And even if we do lose to BYU, I would still call that a success based on what we have. I think a dream scenario is also beating BYU and playing Texas really well. I don't think we could beat Texas if you did it 1,000 times. I don't know how many we'd win. We probably have about a 5% chance of winning. So I see our peak being playing Texas in the round of 32, especially when you start playing a lot of games in a row. That extra playing game is going to wear out some people.
Yeah. Interested to see if the less travel makes a difference, though.
What could be beneficial to us is that we actually didn't go far in the tournament, in the Pac-12 tournament, because you can tell by Jaime and Tiger Campbell that they have been overplayed because they've had to, and it's starting to catch up with them. Tiger Campbell doesn't have the legs to shoot in late parts of games. He goes ice cold. He's been ice cold, I'd say, the last 4 or 5 games. And Jaime's shooting numbers have dropped substantially in the last few games. He had that breakout one in Arizona where he went for 25 on his birthday. But other than that, he's been getting a lot of his points at the free throw line. He doesn't take that many field goal attempts, and he needs to be more aggressive. And so hopefully this full week of rest sparks both of them because we need them both dearly.
Yeah, I hope that the rest and the fact that there's less travel this year with it all being in Indiana makes a difference. But yeah, I think round of 32 is a realistic best case scenario. But moving on to talk about the different regions, and I guess we'll start with the East, which is UCLA's region, and talk about who we like there. This is the biggest toss up for me since Michigan has been not playing well heading into the tournament after being one of the top teams about a month ago. So yeah, who do you guys like in the East? And who do you think are potential Cinderellas? What are your thoughts on this quadrant of the bracket?
My hot take, which I already said a little bit about before, is the winner of Alabama UConn will go to the Final Four. There's some good teams in there, but Texas has just gone to their conference championship. So usually teams that get that far don't end up doing the double because of fatigue. And I don't think Michigan, especially with, their best player hurt, will get that far, or they may get far, but not far enough. And I don't think Florida State is great. Any team that loses to Georgia Tech, who in their game before
I
struggled.
like Georgia Tech though.
Yes, but Georgia Tech
is great.
Georgia Tech struggled against Miami, which has only 6 scholarship players. So, the ACC has not been great this year. And Florida State has a reputation as a good basketball school, but that doesn't mean they're a good team this year. I think that Alabama or UConn is really going to be the team to beat.
Yeah, I think that's what makes me hesitant about the Florida State because I really like them in years past. I think Leonard Hamilton is a really underrated coach. And that made me think, look, like they have been playing a little better, a little slightly better form maybe than Michigan, although Michigan's the more talented team, obviously. So who would I take in that potential Sweet 16 matchup? But I think the fact that ACC is so weak kind of pushes me away from Florida State. And I like Alabama. I love Nate Oates' intensity on the sideline. What he said to Will Wade. He told Will Wade to GTFO after.
Yeah, he politely told him to leave the court.
Yes, after no one really likes Will Wade and LSU, and Eric Musselman and Arkansas had issues with their sportsmanship after their semifinal in the SEC tournament. So
Dickie V does not like him.
Yeah, no one it's like him and Will Wade and Sean Miller are the two guys where it's like no matter how much
Dickie
they cheat,
V's hit list.
no matter how much evidence there is of them just offering bribes to recruits, they'll never get fired. But anyway, that I digress. But I think this is just a wide open region for me. I think it could be Texas, because I just think Alabama just doesn't have the pedigree and something about Shaka Smart having been there. So it's really a toss-up for me. In full disclosure, I haven't done my bracket yet since I've been busy the last few days, and I was going to do it this afternoon. I think I'm going to take Texas out of the East, but it's such a toss-up for me.
Yeah, I think it's the win. In my bracket, I'll go off what I did for our league, our little tournament challenge. I have Alabama out of the East. I went back and forth between Alabama and Texas. I was really struggling between the two. I think it's a toss-up, but I think Alabama just plays so well defensively. Even in the SEC tournament, they shot horribly. I think I watched 2 of their games. I watched the LSU and I watched the Arkansas games. And Alabama they couldn't buy a 3. Herb Jones couldn't shoot. I forgot what their point guard's name is. He's crafty, but he couldn't shoot either. But I'll take Alabama's I'll take defense in the tournament. Defense wins championships, which Texas does play some good defense. But Jake, to your point, Texas only played 2 games in the Big 12 tournament because Kansas got postponed, uncontested. So they really only played 2 games. I think Texas is fresh enough to be fine. I don't think the tournament's going to be a factor for them. Another potential upset that I have. This hurts our conference, the Pac-12, but I think Georgetown is too hot, and Patrick Ewing has done such a fantastic job. Well, at least in the tournament, in the Big East tournament, Patrick Ewing really got the most out of his players, and it was really cool to see him bring home the Big East championship at the Garden, even though they check his security. But I think Georgetown's the hot hand. I have them over Colorado. I would also see Florida State beating Michigan on the sole fact that they don't have livers.
Yeah, I tend to think that I would go for a Florida State and it's I think a toss up between Texas and Alabama for me. I think the winner of that
I
team
agree.
matchup will go to the Final Four.
I agree.
Colorado's been decent, but not great recently. I feel like they're relatively consistent in the Pac-12, but
they have such a big home court advantage. That's why they do. I think that's why they do so well. They're in the altitude. They take
that's
advantage
true.
of it.
And it's a big travel.
But you could argue that Georgetown had a home court advantage with Patrick Ewing at MSG because he said he felt the aura. So it's possible that
I'm thinking they're doing it for John Thompson. They're doing it for John Thompson. They're inspired.
Look, the thing is,
they're doing it for
Georgetown this year. Now everybody knows my take on the Big East being the best conference in college basketball.
Okay, let's simmer down over there.
And even if
Jake still thinks it's 2007.
Look, even if it wasn't a great conference this year, Georgetown really threw away games early in the season. I think it was 4 or 5 games that they were up double digits to, quad 3 and quad 4 teams and ended up losing. And I almost thought that, they were going to just have to completely restart their program. That's how bad they looked. But they figured it out late and, obviously figured it out in the tournament. So I still think Colorado is going to win. I think that they're the better team. They're still a more talented team, but it'll be a close game. Georgetown is a team that could honestly beat Florida State as well if they make it that far.
And who do you have out of the region again, Jake?
I have FSU out of the region, but
okay. Yeah, it's definitely the toss up. And let's talk about the West region now. Gonzaga, number 1 overall tournament seed. I expect them to be a very popular pick. But yeah, I think from this region, I have Gonzaga going to the Final Four. I think they're too consistent. They obviously aren't as battle tested as some teams coming out of their conference. However, I just think Suggs and Kispert and the rest of their shooters are just their
offenses.
Their offense is just it's too consistent. And even when they get a challenge like they did from BYU in the WCC championship game, how many points did they score that game? They still had a great performance and to win 88-78 and facing a pretty solid BYU team. So I think that kind of shows that they are the ones for me in this region. But yeah, I think UCSB is a real dangerous team to potentially be a Cinderella this time around. I think Creighton played obviously really poorly against Georgetown in the Big East Championship. However, they're a solid team, but there's a lot of drama there coming off of Doug McDermott's bizarre and really insensitive comments. So a lot of drama there. And not Doug McDermott, Greg McDermott. So I think that UCSB is a real team that I think can make a run. And UVA coming off a COVID pause in their program, I think I would take Virginia in the round of 32, but I think I'm going to take SB to face them. And I think that, there's a potential for a Sweet 16 run for SB. I think I'll leave them in the round of 32 though. But they have a transfer from Oregon State. I think, who's been Ja'Cory McLaughlin, who's been a real star for them this year, averaging 16 points a game. Shooting 49% from the field and 41% from 3, who's been real solid. And they have an athletic big man in Amadou Sow from Mali, who's a real solid performer for them, gets 13 points, 8 boards a game. So I think that they're a balanced team and they really dominated their Big West Conference. And we've seen in the past that UC Irvine, when they dominate that conference, has been a real dangerous upset threat as well. And I think SB is well positioned to threaten Creighton here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Creighton has a lot of problems and really had the Big East kind of imploded on itself after Colin Gillespie got hurt, and then McDermott said what he said, and so Creighton has played well at times. They beat UConn in the semifinals, which was not an easy task. UConn was red hot. And I'm pretty sure they've beaten UConn 3 times this year, all 3 with Bouknight. So they certainly have it in them. But UCSB has, I think it's a senior point guard that really is going to have to try and lead them into this, promised land. And so this will be another great game. But I actually have Creighton still moving forward. They are a far more talented team.
I'm with Ben on this one. I think the Gauchos are too talented. They played really well, and I think Creighton's just coming off too much stuff. They played horribly against Georgetown in the tournament, and I've got UCSB. I disagree with Ben though on Virginia. When you don't practice for a week, that's huge. I have my round of 32 is a 12 versus 13 UCSB in
Wow.
Ohio. I'm big on Jason Preston, the point guard for Ohio. I think he's a legit NBA prospect. He averages 16 and a half points per game, nearly 7 rebounds, over 7 assists, shoots 53% from the field and about 41% from three. I think he's legit, and he'll probably be the best player in the court. So I've got Ohio not only beating Virginia, I have them beating Santa Barbara, and that is my magic Sweet 16 team going to lose to Gonzaga. But
Wow.
yeah, I've got Gonzaga out of the West. They've clearly been the best team all year, and they've got a lot of promise to go all the way. They've got so many offensive weapons. Their defense is fine, but their offense is amazing in terms of efficiency. They've got studs. I think Jalen Suggs. If I was in the NBA, I think I'd pick him first. I like him more than Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley. I think
I haven't
Jalen
watched enough
Suggs
of
is.
Jalen Suggs just
I think
because.
he's a legit. I think he's a stud. I think he's a great leader. I think he's one of those guys that you just want on your team. He's going to make you a winner. Not necessarily to say Cade Cunningham isn't, but I think he's hotter now. He's just been more inconsistent.
Cade Cunningham is heated up, but Colo makes a good point. You know, when you don't play for 6 or 7 days, it's almost always a really sloppy first game. And Ohio can certainly take advantage of that. You know, who's going to defend for Virginia? This is the first year in I think it's 5 or 6 years that they're not in the top 25 defensive efficiency on KenPom. And also, if you really are telling me that Kihei Clark is going to have to defend an NBA prospect, I would just say hammer this guy scoring more than 30 points. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. He's kind of like Tiger Campbell in the sense that he's like good at facilitating, but he's not such a great defender, not such a great player, although Tiger's decent. And so for that reason, I also think Ohio it's an upset, but it'll be a game. This could be another like first round blowout exit for Virginia, like there was against UMBC a couple of years ago.
I will say about Ohio, to go dig a little deeper. Back in November, it was on the same date. Virginia lost to University of San Francisco, so have been shown to lose. They have a penchant to losing to much crappier teams. Ohio played Illinois, and they only lost by 2. They can play with the big boys.
Did not know that. It's interesting that they're down at 13. I mean, I guess so. The 12s are pretty strong this year, I'd say, with the bid Steelers. But yeah, I guess I could definitely see that happening. And I love a good 12 versus 13 second round matchup. However, my I don't know. It's tough to pick who I think is going to come out of those 4 teams, just because I feel like it's always risky carrying a double-digit seed to the Sweet 16 in terms of making your bracket calculations. But in the bottom half of this region, it's an interesting spot for the Conference of Champions, for Bill Walton's guys to really make a showing, because I think that it would be interesting to see Oregon against Iowa and USC against Kansas. So I think that both of those games, the Pac-12 has a really good shot, and that would be 2 games I would be really interested in.
Yeah, Oregon needs to focus on VCU first. VCU is, you know, they're actually a pretty good team in terms of like who they've beat. Like there's this metric on ESPN with similar game percentage. And so based on teams, similar ranked teams that they've played, VCU actually fares better. And, you know, Oregon has gotten hot. Well, they've been pretty hot recently. And obviously they're just like, they have so much talent, I would say, in terms of Richardson and just like their whole team basically is able to score. So if they can get through this first round, that Iowa matchup will be big. But there's also, they really do need to focus on the first game. The 7-10 is never just a walkthrough.
Definitely.
I agree.
But
I think
Oregon matches up well with I think they're a versatile team that can match up well. And I think Dana Altman has that tournament pedigree and experience when they were a 12 seed a few years ago. So I kind of like Oregon to potentially make a Sweet 16 run here.
Yeah. Oregon, I think Chris Duarte is a stud.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is the next Klay Thompson, or at least a NBA comp. And then Bill Walton's favorite, Eugene from Eugene in Eugene.
Yes.
He's a really good player. But in terms of Iowa, who is going to stop Luka Garza?
Yeah, that's the problem. They
I
don't
don't
have a
think
big,
I don't
big
think Luka Garza is the best offensive player I've seen, offensive big man I've seen in quite a while. He's just so slow. I don't think they run into a problem until Gonzaga, because Iowa's offense won't be able to keep up with them. It'll be a shootout. It'll be a fun game to watch. That's how far I have them going. But I could see the USC upset over Kansas more likely than Oregon over Iowa, although both could happen. I think Kansas goes as far as David McCormack takes them. And if he falters in that USC matchup, USC could take advantage of it. However, we've watched USC enough to realize that they either look really good or they're asleep for 20 minutes.
As Bill Walton says, some nights they look like they invented the sport.
I could see it. Bill Walton was kind of rubbing in that USC is better just to blunt the loss of UCLA.
Yeah. Anyway, but Jake, do you have Gonzaga out of this region as well?
Yeah, I have Gonzaga out of this region. I really don't like to rate Gonzaga. Every year they seem to be overhyped, but this is the first year that I really think they're a scary team. They beat good teams early in the season, and they didn't get to play Baylor because of COVID, but that would have been a great game. And I still think that they're just, they score so easily. And the second half of the BYU Gonzaga final, where in the first half BYU shot like 11 for 13 from three and dropped 50 points, and in the second half they couldn't even get a shot up. They had 4 or 5 30 seconds in a row and really just looked completely confused. And when Gonzaga wants to turn it on, they can turn it on. That's kind of the way I've seen it. And so it's going to be hard for anyone to stop them, and it's going to take a really talented team to play a perfect game.
I think so. So yeah, moving on to the South region, where Baylor is the #1 seed. Baylor, one of the top teams in the country over the course of the season. However, the COVID pause really slowed them down a little bit, and it means that they haven't played as many games as a lot of other teams heading into the tournament, and they lost a couple of games that perhaps they wouldn't have if they were able to keep their momentum. But yeah, I think for me, I still have Baylor coming out of this region. I think this is a real chance though to see who is the best conference between the Big East. I know the Big not the Big East, the Big 10 and the Big 12. No, I misspoke, Jake. Don't worry. I think because you're going to see Baylor. I think you're going to see a Baylor against Purdue potentially in the Sweet 16, and I think for me, I'm going to see Texas Tech against Ohio State on the other side. And I think if Mac McClung can show up, I think you could even see an upset there. And I think you could see a Baylor versus Texas Tech Elite Eight with Baylor for me, just because of all the talent they have with Teague and Butler, and the rest of the guys there. I think that I think this is Baylor's region to lose. However, the fact that they had that COVID pause and still haven't hit their stride like they were before is still a little concerning.
Yeah, I agree. I do think this is Baylor's to lose. I think an upset that you didn't mention, because I agree with you. I think I had trouble picking Texas Tech and Arkansas, and I went back and forth on them because I think
Colgate's an underrated team. I mean, some of the metrics have them. I think you mentioned it to me.
Moody's going to be the best player on the court.
Yeah, it's going to be tough though for Colgate to win that game, but I think that that's if there's any 14-3, I think it could be that.
Maybe.
But Colgate is statistically really good. I mean, they haven't played anyone, but talented.
I could see Baylor losing to Purdue. I didn't pick it, but I could see it. I think Travion Williams is extremely talented, the big man for Purdue. They've got some shooters. I like Purdue a lot, but to me, they're a team that never really gets past the Sweet 16 anyways. Yeah, but
Did
I
Carson
could see
Edwards
that.
take him to the Elite Eight?
I thought it was always Sweet 16, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Um, I think Texas Tech is a scary team as well, because they've got experience. Chris Beard just took them to a Final Four. What was that, in 2019? They've got some players still from that team, I'm pretty sure. Uh, so I think they're a team to watch out for. I could see them upsetting Ohio State. I didn't pick it, but I could see it.
Interesting. I don't know. Ohio State, they're a solid team. However, I think that they're because they have a lot of quality players, with the likes of Justice Suing and
I
Liddell,
think Dwayne Washington's a
and Dwayne
stud.
Washington is definitely an X factor for them. But I just think that I don't know, when Baylor plays well, I think they're just a little bit better.
I
So
agree. Their
I
guard, they
definitely
have the best guard combo.
Yeah,
They've
and
got
I
the
think
best backcourt.
Davion Mitchell is a key for Baylor. I noticed when I was watching them before COVID hit them, when he was playing well and getting to the rim with his quickness. He's a bit of a smaller guard, but with his quickness, and they're able to play three dynamic guards, with Butler, him, and Teague. I think that when Mitchell plays well on top of those two guys, they're really tough to contain.
Yeah, by the way, Purdue did make the Elite Eight 2 years ago. That was when Carson Edwards
Yeah, so I said,
dropped like 42
yeah,
points.
it's going off.
But this region again is I think that it is Baylor's to lose, but there's also a good argument for Ohio State. I mean, the Big East is just such a deep
Big Ten.
Big Ten, sorry. The Big Ten is such a deep conference that some of their losses were just bound to happen. And my guess is I think if they had played in the Big 12, they would have been the Big 12 champions. That's how talented they were. Now I still have Baylor coming out, and I think that's because Baylor's kind of road is easier, because whether Ohio State has to play Texas Tech or Arkansas is going to be difficult. So
I would be shocked if Baylor didn't make the Elite Eight.
yeah, Baylor to make the Elite Eight for sure, but even to come out into the Final Four, to come out of the South, they're just so offensively gifted. I think before the COVID pause, they were, the second team in Ken Palm offense behind Gonzaga, and there was a time where they were actually ahead, like betting wise, they were the favorite, even though they never made it to one on the on the rankings. They were lower odds than Gonzaga. So they certainly have it in them to come out of this bracket. And then, whoever they play from the Midwest, I also think they're going to be favored in that as well.
I think if it was Illinois, they probably wouldn't be, but I don't know. I guess we'll talk about the Midwest now. For me, I think Illinois is like probably in the teams other than Gonzaga in the best form of any team heading into this tournament. They look like a complete team. Io Donsunmu has been playing really well, and Kofi Cockburn has really just been an absolute tank, and his footwork has definitely improved from last season. And his quickness is better for a guy his size, and he moves so much better than a guy like Garza for Iowa. So I think Illinois for me is coming out of this region. However, my take though is that the winner of Oklahoma State against Illinois in the Sweet 16 will make the national championship to face Gonzaga. That's my take, because I think there's a chance Cade Cunningham gets hot, and if they upset Illinois, I think Oklahoma State could make a real run here and come out of this region.
It's certainly possible. The bottom half of the Midwest is just really not that special.
Houston has 2 Q1 wins, and Oklahoma State has 10. I think if Oklahoma State had beaten Texas in the Big 12 championship, I would have been saying how ridiculous it was that they aren't on that 2 line where Houston is right now.
Yeah, well, they lost, but I think, look, maybe it's the New Jersey in me, but Rutgers to beat Houston in the round of 32 is not insane. When they play well, Rutgers plays very well, and they match up against Houston. And again, Houston just hasn't been battle tested. When you don't play good teams all year, and then you come and every single team you're playing in March or in April is talented, they just can't. It gets hard after a while. It gets far more fatigued than when you're beating Tulane by 20 points and you don't have to play and your starters don't play the last 10 minutes of the game. That's the way it often goes with Gonzaga, and that's the same thing with these other mid-major conferences. That's why Houston's going to struggle, I would think. Certainly, if they get to West Virginia or San Diego State, that's going to be another problem as well.
Definitely possible. I think West Virginia also. They've had a few good wins here and there, but they also, I mean, they didn't beat Oklahoma State without one. Oklahoma State didn't have Cade Cunningham, so that's why I'm not a fan of that bottom quadrant of the Midwest region. I don't see any team that's a real threat there. San Diego State is just, they're good but not great for me, and it's definitely not. I'm not high on that part of the bracket. I think the winner will come from the top half. I think Oregon State would be quite the storyline. I think Tennessee will take that game, but I think that this is a real chance for the Conference of Champions to really make a statement. It was Bill Walton was telling Dave Pasch during the title game that he was a conspiracy theorist for saying that Oregon State needed to win that conference championship to make the tournament. So the conference championship has a chance to prove Bill right, because Bill thinks the Final Four is going to be Oregon State, UCLA, USC, and Colorado. So 5 teams in the Final Four. So
Bill can do whatever he wants. Right. I have trouble picking. I think the winner of Illinois and Oklahoma State goes to the championship.
I agree.
I think West Virginia definitely beats Houston. I think Bob Huggins and his toughness that he instills in his players. I think Houston has been benefited by being ranked so highly in the preseason, and they caught Texas Tech really early, and they didn't hit their form yet, so they beat them, and then they played basically nobody. They lost to East Carolina by 10 on the road and didn't get penalized for it, which still blows my mind. I think they're overrated.
I think so too.
It
shows that
I didn't pick it, but I think they could lose to Rutgers. I think Rutgers is sneaky good.
I picked Rutgers, and it's not crazy. Look, if there was going to be a 15 to lose to 15 to win, it would be Cleveland State, because
I could see it.
Just some of the games that Houston had in the American tournament are just so sad. They basically have played. They played Memphis twice, who didn't make the tournament, at home, and they won by 3, and then they won by 2. And their other games, they blew out Cincinnati, who was the 5 seed, and somehow managed to make it to the finals. And they beat Tulane by 25 points. Like, they are not battle tested. The last time they played a really strong team, you could argue Wichita State was mid-February, and before that, I don't even know. Like, I'm going through it here. They
haven't. And the fact that Wichita State won the conference in the regular season and they were in a play-in game, I think says a lot about the strength of schedules that those two teams had. Of course, Wichita State only won the regular season title because of a unbalanced COVID schedule, but still, I think the point still stands. But there was really not an 8th team that was really like a clear 2 seed. So I guess that went to them. Or I guess Iowa, that means on the rankings, they have Houston at 7 and Iowa at 8 overall, which is interesting. But yeah, I think with so do we all have Illinois coming out of Midwest?
I do.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, we got our Final Fours. I've got Gonzaga over Texas, and then I have Illinois over Baylor, and then I'm going with Gonzaga to win it all this year. So I think this is the year they're going to get it done, because I always think they're overhyped, but like Jake said, I kind of agree. This is the year they're legit.
And in 2021, it's, the year of the outlier. There's been so many crazy basketball games. If there was a team to finally, step up and win, it would be Gonzaga.
I agree.
I'll go.
Go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, like, my 4, I have Gonzaga over Alabama, and then Baylor over Illinois. And how blessed would it be if we got Baylor and Gonzaga, 2 of the best offensive teams in the country, in the national championship? I think it would be probably the best national championship of the decade. And I know that it's, just the beginning of the decade, but but
Yeah,
it will be
40
the best game of
Maybe
the
one of those
2020.
40-point UConn versus Butler national
That,
championships.
that's a Bill Walton quote right there. This is the best championship of the decade, even
The
though it's the
best
first
champion.
game.
Look, and if Bill says that, then I'm with him on that, along with the possibility of an all four Pac-12 Final Four. But anyway,
It's not
I'm gonna
possible.
miss.
There's only
I'm gonna
Pac-12
miss
teams in
Bill
3
calling the
regions.
games. I need Bill to call a Pac-12 game.
Yeah, we
I
need
need
CBS
to
to hire
hear.
him temporarily.
Yeah, I need some quacking. When the Oregon Ducks play, I need him to quack. I could use some woofing.
Some of the stuff he said. I
Some
think the funniest one
random
was
noises.
when Dave Pash's mother-in-law passed away, and Bill was like, "We dedicate this game to whatever
Oh
her name
yeah,
was.
he loves
Such
to
a
dedicate.
lovely woman." He's like, her daughter and Dave and are in love, a beautiful love story. Wait, you are still married
Yes.
to him. You are still married to her, right, Dave? And he's like, "Yes, Bill, 25 years." And Bill goes, "I didn't know she was older than 25."
Yeah, the Bill's been on point this year. Bill's been great. I love when there's a left-handed player and he'll say like, Jules Bernard has shown to be left-handed and will continue to be left-handed throughout
for the rest of the game, he has definitely been a bright spot. But the problem, I think the reason CBS is not going to be able to hire him is he talks too much about the Daily Wager, and now that's ESPN, that's competing, and obviously CBS is not going to want free sponsorship for a rival sports show.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would be a great addition. Him and Gus, wow, that would be something to hear.
And actually, there are tidbits of Bill Walton's analysis that I actually do find actually educational, but it's very few. You really have to.
Few.
It's very few, but especially when he talks about big man post defense, there's probably not too many other people I'd want to hear give me some tidbits on post defense than arguably the second greatest college player, and he backpacked Portland to that 1977 championship. Absolutely backpacked. He was a great player, but just his injuries just caught up to him. But yeah, he's been a very bright spot for my entertainment. And Dave Pash should already be in the Hall of Fame for just having to deal with him on a consistent basis.
Such a good duo for sure. Wait, so did we both give our predictions, or did all three of us give our predictions?
Yeah, Ben.
Just real quick, I have Baylor over Gonzaga 82-80.
All right, so I'm Gonzaga. So you're Baylor, Jake.
Yeah.
And who do you have, Colo?
I got Gonzaga over Illinois, 73-70.
All right, so we got 2 Gonzagas over Illinois and 1 Baylor. All right, so that'll do it. Thank you. If you listen to the end, go Bruins tonight.
Quack.
And yeah, it should be hopefully it'll be a fun tournament, lots of drama. I'm sure there's a Cinderella in here whose name we didn't even mention tonight. But yeah, so should be fun. And this is March. Let's go.